This is Ryan Rail Stalker and Steven Wilcox performing their duo dramatic interpretation at the state championships in Modesto, California in April of 2009. Their performances here earned them first place in the state and entry into the nationals. Ryan had previously earned a berth in the national tournament with his humorous interpretation solo performance. I think you're going to really enjoy this.
Just after sunrise one Saturday morning, Bartholomew started for town. A pleasant breeze whistled through the feather in his hat, and when he got to the gates of town, the sound of "Hats off to the king!" On came the king's carriage, white, gold, and purple.
Purple?
It swept past Bartholomew.
Then suddenly, its mighty brake shrieked.
Squeaky.
Bartholomew could hardly believe what he saw. From the side window of the carriage, the king himself started straight back at him.
Squeaky, 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 squeaky. Back up!
Very slowly, the whole procession backed down the street until it stopped, right in front of Bartholomew.
Well, do you or do you not take your hat off before your king?
Yes, indeed, sire. I do take off my hat before my king, but you see, my hat is off.
Then what's on your head?
On my head?
In the beginning, Bartholomew Cubbins did not have 500 hats. He had only one hat. It was probably the oldest and plainest hat in the whole kingdom of Did, where Bartholomew Cubbins lived.
The kingdom of Did was ruled by King Derwin. His palace stood high on top of the mountain, and it was a mighty view, which made King Derwin feel
mighty important. Far off on the fields, on the edge of a cranberry bog, stood the hut of the Cubbins family. It was the exact same view that King Derwin saw from his balcony, except Bartholomew saw it backwards. It was a mighty view, but it made Bartholomew feel
mighty small.
The 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cubbins, copyright 1936.
A Dr. Seuss story that, well, doesn't rhyme.
It doesn't rhyme?
Besides the fact that it doesn't rhyme.
But Fox and Socks.
When confronted with a variety of terrifying circumstances, all beyond his control.
A Cat in the Hat, even that rhymes.
Bartholomew learns that even if you are mighty small, everyone's mighty important.
But they all rhyme.
On my head? It's a hat, but it can't be mine, so Bartholomew has to put it on my head.
Well, I don't care how it got there. You take it off. Bartholomew quickly snatched off the hat and stared at it in astonishment. It was exactly the same as his own hat.
The same size, the same color, exactly the same feather.
Oh, by the crown of my fathers, did I not command you to take off that hat?
You did. I took it off. I took it off twice.
Oh. Nonsense. There is still a hat upon your head.
Another hat?
Another hat.
Another hat?
Another hat.
Another hat?
Oh, come. What is the meaning of all this?
I don't know. It's never happened to me before.
Arrest this impudent trickster. We'll teach him to take off his hat. For a moment, Bartholomew was terribly frightened.
But still, the king can do nothing dreadful to punish me because I haven't really done anything wrong. It would be cowardly to feel afraid.
Follow the black carpet?
Okay!
Bartholomew walked on until he stood in the very middle of the throne room.
The very middle of the throne room.
The king, in a long scarlet robe, was sitting in his throne. Beside him stood
Sir Alaric, keeper of the king's record.
Young man, I'll give you one more chance. Will you take off your hat for your king?
Well, I'll try, but I'm afraid it won't do any good.
He took off hat after hat after hat until he stood in a great pile of hats. Oh, heavens! He's taken off 45, and there were 3 more down in the town.
And you must add on 87 more that flew off my head as we galloped up the hill. Trying to be helpful.
Come, Sir Alaric. What do you make of all this nonsense?
Very serious nonsense, Your Majesty. I advise you call in an expert.
Then, a voice came from the balcony window.
What's the matter, Uncle Derwin?
There's a boy up here. He's just about your age. He won't take off his hat.
What's the matter?
He won't take off his hat.
Send him down here. I'll fix him.
Maybe you can. No, I'm trying. Send him down to the Grand Duke Wilfred. Two of the king's own guard led Bartholomew out of the throne room and to the Duke.
So you won't take off your hat. Stand right out over there. I need a little target practice with my bow and arrow.
And he let fly an arrow. Ziz! It barely grazed Bartholomew's forehead and nipped off his hat. Away it blew. But another hat appeared on his head. Ziz, zaz, ziz, the arrows flew, until the Grand Duke's entire bag full of arrows was gone. Yet still, a hat sat upon Bartholomew's head.
145 hearts.
These hats are driving me mad. Why waste time with the child's bow and arrow? Fetch me the mightiest bow and arrow in all my realm. Fetch, yeoman of the bowman.
A gigantic man strode across the terrace. His bow is as big as a branch of a tree and twice as long as Bartholomew and thicker than his wrist.
Yeoman of the bowman. Yeoman of the bowman. Shoot off this boy's hat. And make it stay off.
Cursive, like a mad giant hornet, the arrow tore through the air towards Bartholomew Cubbins.
Berzap! The sharp arrow had bit through the hat and carried it off and on for a full half-mile.
Cursive, it plugged to a stop in the heart of an oak tree.
And yet there, on Bartholomew's head, sat another hat.
If I were king, I'd chop off his head.
Oh, a dreadful thought! But I'm afraid I'll have to. Young man, march down the steps and tell the executioner to chop off your head. Bartholomew's heart sank into his boot, but he did as the king commanded.
I must take off my hat.
Hat after hat he tore from his head.
156, 157, 158.
It grew colder and damper.
216, 217, 218.
It seemed he must be in the very heart of the mountain.
I must be in the very heart of the mountain.
He turned the corner and entered into the dungeon.
The king says you must chop off my head.
Oh, I'd hate to. You seem like such a nice boy.
Well, I'm afraid you'll have to. Please get it over with.
Okay. But first you're going to have to take off your hat.
Why?
I don't know. It's one of the rules. I can't execute anyone with his hat on.
All right. Can you take it off for me?
What's this? Fiddlesticks. I can't execute you at all.
You shook hands with Bartholomew and sent him back upstairs to the throne room.
What are you doing back up there?
I'm sorry, Your Majesty. My head can't come off with my hat on. It's against the rules.
So it can't. How many hats does that make altogether? 336. 336 hats.
I suppose I'll have to do away with him. Send him up to the highest turrets, and I, in person, will push him off.
Wilfred, I'm surprised at you. But it's a great idea. So the king and the duke led Bartholomew up toward the highest turret.
448, 449, 450.
Counted Sir Alaric. But then he took off his triangular spectacles and wiped them on his sleeve. The hats began to change. Each new hat was fancier than the one just before.
Your Majesty, Your Majesty!
But the king and the duke couldn't hear. They had already reached the top of the highest turret.
Stand right out there and get up on the wall. I can't wait to push you off.
But when Bartholomew stepped onto the wall, they gasped in amazement. He was wearing the most beautiful hat they had ever seen in the Kingdom of Did. It had a ruby larger than the one the king himself had ever owned.
It had cockatoo plumes.
Mockingbird plumes.
Ostrich plumes.
Paradise plumes.
Besides such a hat, the king's crown seemed like nothing.
Nothing? Wait. Will you sell me that wonderful hat?
$4.99. That makes exactly 500 hats.
500. Will you sell it to me for 500 pieces of gold?
Anything you say, sire.
The king's hands trembled with joy as he reached for the hat. Slowly, he felt a great weight lifted from his head. He held his breath. Then, He felt the cool evening breeze flow through his hair. The head of Bartholomew Cubbins was there. The king commanded that the hat he had bought,
And all the other hats too.
be kept in a great crystal case by the side of his throne.
But neither Bartholomew Cubbins, nor King Durwan himself, not anyone else in the entire kingdom of Dib, could ever explain what had happened. They can only say it just happened to happen, and that it was not very likely to happen again.